Beloved, the moment you refused to stay silent, the streets began to change their conversation about you. Where once your name might have been overlooked, now it carries weight. People whisper it with both hope and unease, because truth has a way of unsettling the comfortable while lifting the weary. Your stance has shifted atmospheres. You are no longer seen as one who bends under pressure. You are marked as the one who holds steady when others fold. Every generation looks for someone who won't play games with deception. That mantle now rests on you. This is not about seeking recognition or applause. It is about carrying heaven's assignment in public spaces. What felt like personal pain was never wasted. It was the fire that forged your authority. What once broke you now equips you. You walk with scars, but those scars speak louder than polished words. They testify that you endured, and in your endurance God placed a presence on you that cannot be ignored. When you walk through the city, pretense trembles. When you speak, lies lose their footing. When you simply stand, those around you are reminded that folding is no longer an option. Psalm 46 verse 10 declares, "Be still and know that I am God." That stillness in you, the refusal to be moved by fear, has become a declaration in itself. It tells the world God is in control, and I will not retreat. Some see you as a problem, others see you as a lifeline. That is the cost of this calling. Truth-tellers are rarely welcomed by all, yet they are always remembered. You did not ask for the streets to notice, but heaven orchestrated it. Influence follows not the one who chases approval, but the one who stands firm in conviction. Isaiah 43 verse 2 reminds us, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned." You carry proof of this promise. You pass through floods of opposition and fires of betrayal, yet you remain standing. That survival was not just for your sake, it was for the witness of everyone watching. Do not mistake this for popularity. Popularity fades with the trends, but calling reshapes culture. A calling draws both allies who believe in you and enemies who fear what you represent. You are not here to entertain the crowd. You are here to establish truth where falsehood has long reigned. Your voice carries the sound of heaven into earthly conversations. Your presence becomes a shelter for those too weak to stand on their own. You are now known not only as the truth-teller, but as the protector, the one whose strength shields others from collapse. The streets are talking, but what they see in you is more than reputation. They are witnessing prophecy fulfilled in plain sight. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." That future has begun to unfold publicly. You are stepping into what heaven always knew about you. The recognition you feel now is not coincidence, it is alignment. Receive this season with courage. Walk with the awareness that your voice is not ordinary, your stance is not casual, and your presence is not accidental. The streets already recognize what heaven prepared in secret. Now is the time to carry it boldly, for you are the truth-teller, the protector, the one who doesn't fold. Friend, because you stood firm when it was hardest, your name now speaks before you do. You walk in and conversations change. Some lower their voices, others straighten their backs, and still others breathe easier, as if relief finally entered the room. Long before you arrived, your name did. It prepared the atmosphere, shifting the tone of the space. That's not something earned overnight. It's the fruit of living with integrity when no one was watching. Proverbs 22 verse 1 declares, "A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. What you carry is more valuable than money, because reputation speaks where your mouth hasn't yet opened." The weight of your presence didn't come from theatrics or drama. It was forged in countless small, courageous choices. Every time you refused to fold, when it would have been easier, you added another brick to the foundation of trust people now stand on. People may not remember every decision you made, but the consistency of your truth-telling built a record stronger than words. That's why your name can travel ahead of you. It is tied to deeds, not noise. Notice how people prepare differently when they know you're coming. Some rehearse excuses, fearing exposure. Others gather courage, knowing protection walks through the door with you. In both cases, your reputation functions like a moral thermometer. It reveals the temperature of the room. Matthew 5, verse 16 reminds us, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Light doesn't argue with darkness. It simply shows up and changes the environment. That is the kind of authority your life now carries. It is tempting to think reputation comes from one grand moment, but real influence rarely works that way. It's built in the shadows, when you told the truth no one wanted to hear, or when you defended the one everyone else overlooked. These moments stacked together create a witness the streets can't ignore. Your name is now social currency. It buys trust where others spend suspicion. People lean in when you speak because they already know the weight behind your words. But influence is not without tension. Being known as a standard bearer draws two kinds of people, those desperate for protection and those terrified of exposure. The same authority that comforts the vulnerable unsettles the corrupt. That's the paradox of being trusted. You will never be neutral ground. Your example either encourages courage or threatens compromise, and both reactions prove the integrity of your reputation. What many miss is how your presence lowers the cost of courage for others. By simply standing firm, you show that fear doesn't have to win. Someone else who thought they had no strength suddenly finds their voice because they saw you use yours. Acts 1 verse 8 declares, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses." Power isn't always about miracles in the sky. It's also the steady strength to be a witness when truth is unpopular. That witness ripples outward, giving others the courage to rise. Your life is no longer just about you. Influence has become stewardship. The name you carry opens doors not merely for personal advancement, but for justice, for protection, for the vulnerable who cannot enter those doors alone. You were not placed in positions of visibility for applause, but for accountability. To carry a name that shifts rooms is to carry responsibility. Every conversation you enter is an opportunity to defend truth, extend protection, and silence lies. Yet do not underestimate the quiet power behind all of this. Reputation doesn't roar, it resonates. It's not the noise of self-promotion that made your name known, but the steady rhythm of integrity. People trust you because you've proven again and again that you don't fold when storms hit. That consistency is why your presence is already doing the work before you even speak. Own that reality with boldness. You no longer need to convince people of who you are. The evidence has already spoken. The name that goes before you was written by God through years of trials, choices, and victories. It is both a shield for the weak and a warning to the unjust. Own the name that opens doors of justice, because heaven has already confirmed it. Your presence is reshaping environments, and your reputation is leading the way. And as your presence shifts rooms, your voice exposes truth. You don't shout to wound, you speak to reveal. That difference unsettles them because your words don't leave the sting of pettiness, they carry the weight of heaven's authority. Many can scream, few can cut cleanly. But when your voice enters a room, it doesn't scatter wild accusations. It shines light exactly where darkness tried to hide. John 8 verse 32 declares, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." That freedom never comes through insult or rage. It comes when truth is spoken with precision. Truth by its nature doesn't need to bruise egos to be effective. It separates behavior from identity, exposing systems without humiliating souls. People wrestle when you speak. Your words make them confront structures, habits, and deceptions, not just their fragile pride. Ephesians 5 verse 11 tells us, "Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them." Exposure is not humiliation, it's light breaking in. You don't weaponize offense, you dismantle deception with clarity. Think of how a skilled surgeon operates. The scalpel doesn't hack wildly, it makes precise cuts to remove disease without destroying what must remain. That is your style in truth-telling. You don't storm in with noise, you ask targeted questions, you present clear facts, you deliver with calm authority. Those who love shadows panic because they cannot deflect your steadiness. They expected shouting matches, but you refuse to play that game. Instead, you speak in such a way that excuses collapse under their own weight. Your words protect as much as they expose. By naming deception, you shield the innocent from becoming its next victim. By confronting corruption, you block its ability to keep multiplying. Proverbs 31 verse 8 commands, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute." Every time you stand in truth, you are not just dismantling lies, you are building a wall of safety for those who had no defense. It takes a rare discipline to confront without descending into chaos. Many equate boldness with brutality, thinking volume equals power. But you've learned that true courage is quieter, steadier, and sharper. Anyone can cause damage with words. Few can bring healing while cutting out the infection. That's why accountability follows your voice. You don't stir confusion, you restore order. The truth you carry forces systems to pause, forces lies to fall silent, forces hidden things into the light. Make no mistake, this level of clarity is not soft. It is fierce, but it is fierce with purpose. It doesn't tear down a person's humanity. It tears down the fortress of deception that enslaves them. When truth is rooted in love, hearts shift more deeply than when shamed into silence. Love doesn't dull the blade, it sharpens it, because the aim is restoration, not destruction. When you speak, even those who resist cannot deny that the motive is different. It's not about winning an argument, it's about freeing captives. That balanced boldness without brutality is the rarest discipline. Anyone can explode in anger. But you've chosen the harder road to speak with authority that unmasks lies while keeping dignity intact. This is the road Christ himself walked. He confronted Pharisees without needing to slander them. He called out hypocrisy without resorting to insult. And yet, his words shook empires. That same spirit empowers you now. Your presence carries credibility because you refuse to reduce truth to personal attack. You've chosen the higher ground where truth functions like light. It doesn't scream at the darkness. It simply makes it impossible for the darkness to stay hidden. And because of that, those who listen are set free, not just from deception around them, but from the lies within them. Let truth be surgical in your mouth. Precision saves more than rage ever will. When fear rises, your name is the one they whisper because you don't fold when danger shows its teeth. People know who bends under pressure and who stands, and they've discovered you are not one who caves. When threats approach, they remember your steadiness. You have become the person their voices reach for at midnight, not because you sought it, but because your life proved you could carry it. Psalm 82 verse 3 commands, "Defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed." That scripture is no longer just ink on a page, it has become your reputation. Where your presence rests, predators hesitate. It's not only about strength, but about visibility. Predators thrive in shadows, but your visibility is light they can't endure. When you stand in a space, calculations change. Offenders measure the risk differently because your presence raises the cost of harm. That's the power of someone who refuses to bow to intimidation. You may not even need to speak loudly. Just being present shifts the atmosphere. Psalm 91 verse 4 declares, "He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge." In the same way, your steadiness becomes a visible covering, a deterrent that whispers, "Not here, not under this watch." But protection is not just about blocking threats. It is about creating safety. You model boundaries others didn't know they could set. You enforce them calmly with dignity, showing that peace is not weakness but disciplined strength. When you intervene, it is not reckless chaos, but surgical precision, minimal collateral, maximum rescue. People take note because it is rare to see courage, so focused courage that doesn't draw attention to itself, but directs every ounce of energy toward preserving life. Protection also reaches into unseen places, the wounds of the heart. Many are not only in need of physical rescue, but of emotional restoration. You have become a living reminder that dignity is practical, not abstract. By listening, by showing patience, by refusing to treat brokenness as a burden, you give people back their sense of worth. Psalm 82 verse 4 exhorts, "Rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked." Sometimes the wicked is external. Sometimes it is the lie people believe about themselves. Your voice cuts through both. It is no accident that people trust you with their urgent needs. Reliability is proven in storms, and you have stood through yours. When others crumbled, you endured. When others turned away, you leaned in. That track record made you more than a friend. It made you a refuge. You have become someone others can call, not because you are perfect, but because you are consistent. You don't chase drama, you stabilize it. You don't inflame crises, you calm them with presence and prayer. Never forget, the protector's role is more than social. It is spiritual. You carry a prayerful vigilance that strengthens walls others cannot see. While many fight only what is visible, you fight in both realms, standing in intercession when others are unaware. Your watchfulness is not paranoia, it is discernment, born of the Spirit. The atmosphere bends when you pray, because your covering extends beyond human reach. God has trusted you with a shield an ordinary life could never carry. This courage you embody is contagious. Others begin to imitate your calm boundaries, your steady voice, your unshaken stand. Your example reduces the cost of courage for them, because they've seen it lived out in you. Protection multiplies when people decide to walk in the same strength you've displayed. What began as your stand becomes a protocol, a standard, a ripple effect that keeps whole communities safer. Understand this. You are both shield and voice. Shield to block attacks. Voice to speak for those too silenced to defend themselves. That dual role is rare, but it is holy. The oppressed can breathe easier because your presence stands between them and the storm. The voiceless can be heard because your words amplify what they could never carry alone. That is the ministry of protection, social, emotional, spiritual, and divine. That same ministry of protection has been forged in the fire. They thought pressure would silence you. They assumed fire would expose weakness, but instead it revealed a spine. Your survival wasn't accidental. It was proof that God had built something inside you that trials couldn't dissolve. James 1 verse 12 declares, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him." Every time you stood firm, heaven took note. Resilience was not born in a single moment of triumph. It was shaped in countless hours where no one applauded you for staying faithful. Quiet refusals to bow, small decisions to remain honest, steady steps forward when your legs shook. Those moments built the steel of your spirit. When others collapsed under the weight of compromise, you found strength not in yourself, but in the one who promised to never leave you. What people see as toughness is actually trust that God's covenant holds when the ground shakes. Pressure is not your enemy, it is the proving ground. Without it, no one can tell if faith is casual sentiment or a covenant sealed by endurance. Each trial became a stage where God displayed his keeping power through you. While others waited to see if you would crack the fire, only confirmed what covenant looks like in practice. 1 Corinthians 15 verse 58 urges, "Stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." Your steadfastness has made that verse visible, embodied in real time. The world respects what refuses to disappear. At first, persistence is mocked. Your refusal to break looks stubborn, outdated, unnecessary. But time shifts perception. As storms pass and you're still standing, opposition begins to sound different. Dismissal gives way to respect, not because you shouted louder, but because you endured longer. Faith that withstands seasons of ridicule becomes a testimony stronger than words. Your consistency itself becomes the sermon. What people often overlook is that endurance carries theology in its very posture. It is one thing to speak of faith, it is another to embody it when fires rage. When you kept showing up unbroken and unbitter, you became a living doctrine, proof of what faith under fire really looks like. Those who never opened a Bible still learned its message by watching your life. They saw what it meant to wait on the Lord without wavering. They witnessed what it means to trust God when resources were scarce and betrayal cut deep. Without saying a word, your life became a pulpit. Consistency doesn't just safeguard your own journey, it secures your platform for greater influence. People lean on voices that do not vanish in crisis. Because you have refused to break, your words now carry weight. They trust what you say, not because it sounds eloquent, but because it survived the furnace. Endurance made you trustworthy, and that credibility cannot be bought or fabricated, it can only be forged. Your stand is not only about you. A generation is watching, measuring what is possible by your example. Every young believer who sees you unshaken learns that it is possible to stay faithful even when culture demands compromise. Each silent witness who noticed you walking with dignity despite rejection has drawn courage from your endurance. Galatians 6 verse 9 reminds us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." That harvest is not just yours, it is multiplied in those you inspire to keep walking. Do not confuse courage with the absence of fear. The difference is obedience. You stood not because you never trembled, but because obedience meant more to you than comfort. That is the posture heaven crowns the one who shakes but does not surrender. The spine they thought they could break is the covenant they cannot undo. And every time you stand, you are not just surviving, you are rewriting the story of what endurance looks like under the banner of God's faithfulness. That endurance became authority, and authority disrupts darkness. Corruption thought it had the rhythm secured. It mapped out blueprints of compromise, built alliances of silence, and relied on shadows to hide its intentions. Then you walked in. Without shouting, without tearing the walls down, your very presence unsettled the room. They realized quickly that the usual patterns would no longer hold. Amos 5 verse 24 declares, "Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream." When you entered, that river began to rise, breaking the dam that corruption had built. Corruption doesn't survive on brilliance or power, it feeds on complacency. As long as people look away, nod politely, and accept what should not be accepted, it thrives. But the moment you refused to play along, the machine lost its fuel. Your silence wasn't bought, your loyalty wasn't for sale, and your standards could not be adjusted. That refusal collapsed routines more powerfully than a protest. It was not rebellion for rebellion's sake, it was restoration. Restoration carries a different spirit. Where rebellion tears down without vision, restoration disrupts in order to heal. Micah 6 verse 8 reminds us, "What does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God." You embody that alignment. The questions you raise are not meant to embarrass, but to expose. They aren't random accusations. They are surgical inquiries precise enough to reveal not just a single incident, but the entire system that allowed corruption to multiply. When that kind of clarity is introduced, it does more than scare those hiding behind deceit. It teaches others what accountability looks like. Institutions long plagued by hidden deals begin to learn a new rhythm. Your example provides a framework for transparency, showing them that integrity is not a one-time performance, but a culture that must be cultivated. Without shouting, you make honesty the new standard. And courage, when modeled, multiplies. Alone, integrity feels costly. Together, it becomes contagious. As others watch your steady disruptions, calm, methodical, strategic, they discover that they too can act with conviction. What once seemed impossible now feels inevitable. A collective courage forms not chaotic, but orderly. Like dominoes falling in sequence, your integrity becomes the spark that sets reform in motion. Yet disruption by itself is not the goal. Anyone can break something. It takes vision to rebuild. You carry both. Where others might expose corruption only to leave wreckage, you clear space for repair. You prove that righteous confrontation must lead to reconstruction. Isaiah 1 verse 17 says, "Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow." That command is not destructive, it is deeply constructive. A call to protect, rebuild, and restore trust where it has been violated. This is why your presence does not trigger chaos. You don't demolish, you dismantle. You don't destroy, you refine. When pressure comes through you, it is not reckless, it is strategic. Systems that were fragile under corruption grow stronger under truth because the cracks are revealed and repaired. Pressure in your hands becomes a tool of refining, not wreckage. Structures emerge safer, cleaner, and more trustworthy because someone had the courage to press where it hurt. But discernment guides every step. Not every wrong can be confronted the same way, and not every exposure needs immediate broadcast. Strategic disruption requires timing. There are moments when you stand silent and watch gathering the evidence heaven highlights. There are moments when your words drop like stones into still water, sending ripples that reveal hidden currents. And there are moments when your presence alone, calm, unshaken, unmovable, unravels the fabric of deception. That steadiness is what sets you apart. Anyone can react, but few can discern. Anyone can rage, but few can disrupt with precision. God has not raised you to create noise, but to create openings. When you show up, disorder begins to fold, and righteous order emerges. Where others feared collapse, you become the bridge to repair. Friend, because your light exposes what's hidden, it sparks courage in ways that ripple through others. It doesn't take 1,000 voices to shift an atmosphere. Sometimes it only takes one. One person refusing to bow, one person deciding not to compromise, one person daring to stay standing when everyone else folds. That single act has a ripple effect. Suddenly the crowd that had forgotten how to resist remembers their strength. The timid begin to whisper, then to walk, then to rise. That's what courage does. It wakes up what fear tried to put to sleep. People often wait for permission for someone to prove that boldness won't end in disaster. When they see you take that step, their hesitation loses its grip. Your stand becomes an invitation. What once looked impossible suddenly looks inevitable. Paul's words in 1 Timothy 4 verse 12 echo here. Set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. You are not just holding ground for yourself. You are modeling the way forward for others who were silently hoping someone would break the silence. Private courage matters, but public courage multiplies. The decision you make in secret fuels the stand you take in the open, and when that stand is seen, it spreads. Hebrews 10 verse 24 calls us to consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. That's what your life has become, an encouragement on display. Each time you stand firm, you lessen the perceived danger for those around you. What once seemed like a mountain now looks like a climbable hill because you went first. It's remarkable how small acts of boldness reshape culture. You didn't set out to start a movement, you just refused to fold in a moment. Yet over time, those moments stack like bricks, building a new structure where fear no longer dictates the rules. Eventually, those around you begin to expect courage rather than cowardice. A new social norm is born, not one of silence, but of strength. Your influence shifts the baseline of what is considered normal, and others rise to meet it. The most effective leadership is not loud or forceful, it is consistent. Leadership by example is not about dragging others into battle, it's about walking so steadily in truth that others want to walk with you. Matthew 5 verse 13 says, "You are the salt of the earth." Salt doesn't demand attention. It quietly preserves, strengthens, and transforms flavor by its very presence. In the same way, your example quietly but powerfully preserves integrity in a culture that tries to erode it. And when courage becomes shared, it becomes sustainable. One person can inspire, but a community can endure. When others catch your fire, the flame spreads and the light grows brighter. This is how movements are born, not through speeches alone, but through lived examples that ignite something in others. Once courage is cultured in community, it is no longer fragile, it becomes a legacy. Fear loses its power when it realizes it must silence an army, not just one voice. Your consistency is the glue that holds this together. People don't just watch your grand gestures, they pay attention to your everyday choices. The same faith that shows up in crisis is the faith that shows up in discipline, honesty, and quiet obedience. Over time, this consistency weaves a network of trust, a web of mutual protection and accountability. When you live this way, others know they're not standing alone. They begin to understand that courage is not an occasional performance, but a daily posture. And here is the beauty. Bravery becomes a shared language. You may have spoken it first, but now others are fluent. What was once isolated resistance becomes common culture. Where corruption expected silence, it now meets unity. Where fear predicted collapse, it now faces resilience. You showed them how to stand, and now standing is no longer rare, it's expected. When you lead by example, you do more than protect yourself. You cultivate a people who are no longer afraid to live boldly. Your courage doesn't just echo, it multiplies, creating an atmosphere where bravery is not an exception but the norm. In that atmosphere, even your words carry a different weight. You cut the lie, not the person, and that difference is what makes people lean in instead of turn away. Anyone can shout, accuse, or tear down, but it takes wisdom to confront without wounding, to expose without humiliating, to correct while still preserving dignity. When your words are both sharp and soft, at the same time, they don't divide, they disarm. They become instruments of healing rather than weapons of destruction. Rage escalates rage, but gentleness turns fire into embers. Proverbs 15 verse 1 reminds us, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." When you clothe truth in gentleness, it doesn't mean you are weak. It means your strength has been disciplined. It means you are not driven by the impulse to win arguments, but by the calling to win hearts. You understand that the aim is not to leave someone bleeding with shame, but to lead them toward freedom in Christ. Truth loses its power when delivered at the wrong time or in the wrong tone. Accountability requires precision, not just accuracy. You can say what is right in the wrong way and end up doing more harm than good. Timing and tone are the twin guardians of effective confrontation. That is why Colossians 4 verse 6 says, "Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." Grace makes hard truth digestible. Salt preserves it, ensuring it does not spoil in the bitterness of the moment. There is also wisdom in choosing the right setting. Not every battle needs a stage, and not every correction should be broadcast. Sometimes the most Christ-like move is to handle a matter quietly, where dignity can be preserved and reconciliation pursued. Jesus gave this model in Matthew 18 verse 15. "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone." Public exposure may be necessary in certain moments, but whenever possible, private correction builds bridges instead of burning them. Diplomacy often gets mistaken for compromise, but it is not the same. Compromise dilutes conviction. Diplomacy stewards it with wisdom. You don't soften the truth, you sharpen it by placing it in a form that can actually be received. Think of it like medicine. The active ingredient is potent, but the delivery system ensures it brings healing rather than damage. You know the goal is not to prove you're right, but to make wrong things right. That's stewardship, not surrender. A surgeon doesn't cut recklessly. They cut with focus, with patience, with precision. They don't attack the body, they remove the tumor that threatens it. In the same way, when you speak truth, you are not tearing down a person's identity, you are removing deception that has entangled them. Your clarity cuts chains, not souls. And when done rightly, the person walks away, lighter, freer, more whole. That's why surgical truth is both confrontational and compassionate. Confrontation handled this way doesn't break relationships, it strengthens them. When people realize you are not out to embarrass them but to restore them, trust deepens. They may resist at first, but over time your consistency proves your motives. What once felt like criticism is later remembered as care. Correction offered with integrity and gentleness is not easily forgotten. It becomes a testimony of love that values someone's destiny more than their comfort. The beauty of this discipline is how it protects the innocent and preserves credibility. Your calm precision shields those who are vulnerable because lies left unchecked always harm the weak first. At the same time, your careful handling preserves your own reputation, ensuring your voice continues to carry weight. You cannot fight corruption if you lose credibility, and you cannot protect others if your methods mirror the harm you are exposing. Discipline in speech is what keeps your authority intact. This is the posture of Christ-like truth-telling, firm enough to challenge, gentle enough to restore, wise enough to time it well, and humble enough to keep the person's dignity intact. The world may applaud those who shout the loudest, but heaven honors those who speak with both clarity and compassion. You see, your greatest power isn't destruction. It's the ground you clear for something healthy to grow. Anyone can tear down a structure that is rotten, but not everyone has the vision and patience to build something that lasts. That's the difference between rebellion and reform. Rebellion tears down and walks away. Reform clears the rubble and lays new foundations. God has not called you to simply dismantle what is corrupt. He has equipped you to design better structures, ones that protect the vulnerable and elevate righteousness. Exposing fault is necessary, but it is only the first half of the work. If all you do is point out the cracks, the walls will eventually collapse on those who cannot escape. But when you build after exposing, you give people somewhere safe to stand. That is true leadership. It doesn't just declare what's broken, it demonstrates what's possible. Jesus himself said in John 13, verse 15, "I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." His way was never only about confronting sin, it was about showing a kingdom pattern worth following. Blueprints matter. People are looking for models they can trust, and your method of integrity, consistency, and clarity becomes a framework others can replicate. Institutions don't shift overnight, but when they see a life that proves healthy, order is possible, they begin to reimagine their own systems. Your presence gives them a sketch of what accountability and honor can look like at scale. And once a system tastes a better order, it becomes harder for it to return to corruption without shame. The allure of the old ways weakens when you provide something stronger, clearer, and safer in its place. Your construction work is just as important as your confrontation. Without building, people are tempted to drift back into what is familiar, even if it is harmful. But when you offer structures of transparency, accountability, and justice, you reduce the temptation of compromise. Philippians 2 verse 3 speaks directly into this posture. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Systems built on humility and honor naturally last longer than those built on pride and greed. The beauty of this calling is that you are not building alone. True repair requires participation. The work multiplies when you invite others to join, giving them ownership in the restoration. Mentorship and training become essential here. As you model new ways, you must also empower others to carry them. When you equip people inside the system to live by new norms, your influence outlives your presence. That's how legacy is secured, not by a single heroic act, but by a culture of consistent truth-telling and rebuilding that continues through many hands. Transparency becomes a cornerstone of what you construct. Clear protocols, visible accountability, and open processes remove the shadows where corruption thrives. Think of it as replacing walls of secrecy with windows of clarity. When people see how decisions are made, when they know who is responsible for what, the system itself becomes stronger than the personalities within it. What once depended on fear now rests on trust. Romans 12 verse 21 calls us to this higher way. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. You are not simply resisting darkness, you are replacing it with light so strong that evil loses its footing. Every system you build is a testimony. It speaks not only to the present moment, but also to the generations watching. Restoration is never just about fixing what was broken for now. It's about protecting those who will come after you. Sustainable change honors the victims of yesterday while shielding the children of tomorrow. When you model courage, humility, and foresight in your rebuilding, you make it easier for the next generation to live free of the cycles you had to endure. The real mark of your legacy will not be the controversies you confronted, but the structures you left behind. People may forget the arguments, but they will live in the systems you built. They will inherit the culture you designed. And when those systems protect them, when those cultures empower them, they will remember your name, not just as the one who broke corruption, but as the one who built safety, honor, and justice in its place. Don't just break bad systems, be the architect of the healthy ones that replace them. Once the foundation is laid, the question becomes, how will it last? Systems survive not by volume, but by vision, not by impulse, but by strategy. You don't win by yelling the loudest. You win by outthinking the game. Noise may attract attention for a moment, but wisdom secures victory for a lifetime. The world loves to reward impulse, but impulse is easily manipulated. Strategy rooted in discipline and prayer holds a power that reaction can never imitate. Proverbs 25 verse 28 warns us, like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. When you guard your spirit with self-control, you build walls no enemy can easily breach. Restraint is not weakness, it is tactical advantage. In moments of conflict, those who lose their temper first often lose the battle entirely. Corrupt systems thrive on provoking rash responses because rashness can be twisted into guilt. But when you pause, breathe, and measure your steps, you rob them of the weapon they hope to use against you. Your silence can be sharper than their shouting, and your calm more unsettling than their rage. James 1 verse 19 reminds us, "Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Listening first gives you vision others miss. There is a power in patience that few understand. The attacks that come in haste usually collapse under time, but the one who responds with steady endurance often emerges as the voice people trust. By refusing to react to every provocation, you preserve the moral high ground. Credibility is not earned in a single moment, it is built through consistent composure. Every time you choose measured response over heated reaction, you reinforce the foundation of your influence. Over time, even your adversaries are forced to acknowledge the strength of your discipline. Strategic patience does not ignore injustice. It positions you to address it at the right time and in the right way. Think of David, who, though anointed to be king, waited for God's appointed hour instead of seizing the throne through rebellion. His restraint testified to a deeper confidence in God's strategy rather than human impulse. When you allow divine timing to guide your steps, short-term attacks transform into long-term victories. What others meant to diminish you becomes the very stage where your authority grows. Planning with prayer is what separates righteous strategy from human calculation. Without prayer, strategy becomes manipulation, but with prayer it aligns to justice and truth. Prayer keeps your heart tender, even as your mind grows sharp. Prayer guards you from responding out of emotion and anchors you in God's vision for the outcome. When you wait before the Lord, He reveals when to speak, when to move, and when to remain still. Titus 3 verse 2 urges us to slander no one, to be peaceable and considerate, and always to be gentle toward everyone. Gentleness guided by prayer disarms hostility far more effectively than fury ever could. Consistency is another layer of strategy the enemy cannot counterfeit. When accusations rise, when smear campaigns twist your story, when revisionists try to alter history, your unchanging character becomes your defense. No narrative can erase what people have seen consistently in your life. Character outlasts rumors, and integrity outlives slander. By being steady in who you are, you deny lies the oxygen they need to grow. Coolness under pressure is not just admirable, it makes the truth more believable. When others see you calm in the fire, they recognize that your confidence comes from something deeper than circumstance. They know that flesh alone could not stand so steady. It must be the Spirit of God sustaining you. This is how credibility becomes contagious. People trust your message because they see how you carry it under pressure. The strongest strategies are not reactionary bursts, but repeatable, principled responses. Influence that is built on heat fades as quickly as the emotion that fueled it. But influence rooted in principle endures because it does not depend on mood, circumstance, or public opinion. You cannot lead by shouting over chaos. You lead by standing in calm clarity until chaos exhausts itself. Lead with calm strategy. Your authority grows where chaos cracks. Beloved, the streets don't just remember what you said, they remember what you would not let happen. History holds the memory of those who stood in the gap, who refused to watch passively while wrong went unchallenged. You are marked not by silence, but by the moments when your courage became a shield for others. Those moments when it was easier to retreat, but you chose to remain faithful, are what echo long after the crowd disperses. Legacy is never born in comfort. It is forged in the lonely places where fidelity feels costly. Your story is proof that God measures faithfulness more than applause. When you chose integrity in the shadows, heaven recorded it as victory. Paul once declared in 2 Timothy 4 verse 7, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." That testimony does not belong only to ancient saints. It belongs to anyone willing to persevere with unwavering obedience, even when the weight feels unbearable. The refusal to fold is not a private act. It reshapes culture and institutions. Every time you stood firm, you broke cycles of compromise. Where others normalized corruption, your steadfastness introduced accountability. Where fear silenced voices, your boldness sparked fresh sound. Romans 8 verse 28 assures us that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Even the battles you thought were setbacks have become seeds of transformation. What once seemed wasted is now being woven into a larger testimony. Your influence has never been confined to your own life. The truth you modeled now walks in the steps of those who watched you. Someone found their courage by watching yours. Someone learned how to guard their dignity because you guarded yours. Someone now speaks with clarity because you refused to weaponize anger and chose instead to wield truth with precision. This is the invisible inheritance, courage multiplied through imitation. The streets remember, but so do families, workplaces, neighborhoods, and generations yet unborn. With such influence comes a heavier call. This season is not an invitation to relax, but to step into greater responsibility with humility. God entrusts much to those who have proven faithful with little. Revelation 2 verse 10 exhorts us, "Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown." That crown is not applause. It is lives set free, chains broken, dignity restored, and systems rebuilt on righteousness. You were not raised for popularity. You were raised for impact that cannot be erased. The call now is to walk with disciplined courage, for the streets already claim you, and eternity bears witness to the work. You are no longer simply one who endured, you are one who carries the mantle. The fight is not about winning arguments, it is about shaping legacies. The race is not about speed, it is about endurance unto faithfulness. Your story is already written into the fabric of others' deliverance, and heaven affirms what earth has begun to echo. Step forward with steady feet. You were made to be the one who doesn't fold, and your season is now. Before we close, I want to invite you into a moment of fervent prayer. Wherever you are, pause for just a few minutes. Lay aside distractions. This is your time to connect deeply with God, to let His Spirit strengthen you, and to align your heart with His will. Join me now as we lift our voices together. Father in heaven, we come before you with gratitude in our hearts. Thank you for being our constant protector, our unshakable refuge, and the one who never leaves our side. We bless your holy name today, acknowledging that every victory, every ounce of courage, every step of endurance has only been possible because of you. Lord, you are worthy of all praise, and we glorify you for the strength you provide in every season. Almighty God, we stand here as vessels willing to be used by you. The streets may know our name, but we declare that it is your name that reigns above all. We do not boast in our own strength or reputation. We boast in the Lord who equips the weak and makes them strong. Father, you have marked us for a purpose, to be truth-tellers, protectors, and steadfast ones who will not fold under pressure. Seal that identity in our spirits right now. Lord, we thank you for the battles that shaped us, even when they felt heavy. Thank you for the moments when pressure tried to crush us, but instead built endurance within us. Thank you for not allowing our voices to be silenced when lies sought to dominate the narrative. We honor you for the resilience that comes only from abiding in your presence. God of wisdom, fill our mouths with words that carry both clarity and compassion. Teach us to cut through deception without wounding souls, to confront without destroying, to defend without retaliating. May our words heal and guide, never inflame chaos. Let the truth we speak be a reflection of your heart, measured, restorative, and anchored in grace. Father, raise in us the mantle of protection. Let us be the ones who create safe spaces where the vulnerable can breathe again, where the wounded can find dignity, and where the oppressed know they are not alone. May our presence disrupt evil plans and dismantle the schemes of those who seek to harm. Wrap us in your covering, so that when danger appears, our courage stands as evidence of your spirit within us. Lord, we ask for humility in the midst of influence. Let our reputation be stewarded with reverence. Guard us from pride, from arrogance, and from the temptation to believe this mantle is about us. Remind us continually that this is about your kingdom advancing, about your justice flowing, about your people walking in freedom. We thank you for the unseen multiplication of courage. Where one stood now, many will rise. Where silence ruled, now voices will echo with boldness. Father, ignite movements of integrity that ripple from homes to neighborhoods, from workplaces to cities, until cultures are reformed by your truth. Use our consistency to inspire generations who will know how to stand without breaking. God, strengthen every weary heart under the sound of this prayer. Restore confidence to the one who feels overlooked. Rekindle faith in the one tempted to fold. Revive joy in the one burdened by the weight of responsibility. Lord, breathe fresh fire into those who have carried this mantle, silently assuring them that you see, you know, and you reward. We bless you for weaving our personal stories into something greater than ourselves. What began as small acts of obedience now carries eternal weight. The streets may whisper, but heaven resounds with testimony. Father, align our steps with destiny, and let every choice we make honor the call you placed upon our lives. We close this prayer with thanksgiving, knowing that you are faithful to complete the work you have begun. Our lives are in your hands. Our future is secure.